Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the May 14th, 2024 meeting of the Richmond Redevelopment Commission. We have several items on the agenda today. First item is to review the minutes from our prior meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to take a look at the minutes from Tuesday, March 12th, 2024? And are there any changes and corrections? Hearing no changes, do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll motion that.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And once again, I have failed to call the roll, just so that we have that officially in the document. Would you be so kind, Beth, to please call the roll?
Michael Bloom.
Here.
Jenny Lauman.
Here.
Kathy Lucid.
Here.
Gary Turner.
Here.
Allison Zeidel. Kimberly Pickerling.
Here. And we have a quorum. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is a review of the financials, and we have in our package financials from, we have
February and March.
February and March. Would you like to speak to those, Beth?
Sure. So the first packet that we have for February is a recap showing the projects for 2024, our bond series payment. We had noted in January that the TIF revenue bond for 2022, that total amount is higher than in previous years because it does include 123 payment for that. And we have on here our earmark for Richmond Community Schools capital projects, as well as the total earmarked for the 6th and Main project. So with those and the current obligations that we have $3,150,302.29 remaining for the rest of the year. And as you'll see, I have noted on there the Community Crossings 8/2022. That project is completed and has been closed out. And so it does show in our March. So during our March financials, I will ask for a de-obligation of that. But that is carried over there. And in talking about the different projects that are listed, it will be kind of the same for both February and March, so I'll just do that together. So Loop Phase 2 is moving along very nicely. There are some additional work that has been considered to be a part of Loop Phase 2 by the public, which is actually an Indiana American Water project. They're doing a lead line replacement, both in the Depot District and along Main Street. They are going ahead of the Loop Phase 2 project. So the initial road closure was for Indiana American Water and their project. And Loop Phase 2 is now in full excavation mode, and they are getting ready to continue with laying the drain and doing some additional work for that. So,
Ask a question about that. Some of my constituents just last Sunday asked me why the pavement came up for this particular project, and I just replied it was utility driven. Am I correct?
correct.
Okay.
You are correct.
Right.
Yes. Lots of utilities with that. We still have the former hospital. We are having conversations with them about amending our agreement. As you'll recall, our agreement with them to contribute to the remediation and demolition of the former hospital, that funding was provided by the Redevelopment Commission initially to be repaid by the hospital when the environmental restrictive covenants are placed on the property. That property is still going through a process with IDEM to determine all of that remediation work, and that has not been complete yet. We are told there is a hope that that will complete by the end of the year, but at this point, we don't know. So we're having some conversations with them about amending that agreement to go ahead and have this money given back to the Redevelopment Commission in advance of the environmental restrictive covenants being placed on the property, and amending the agreement to say that if for some reason the city fails to place those environmental restrictive covenants on the property within 6 months, we will give them their $1 million back.
So it's basically held up in IDEM, right?
Correct. Yes. So,
They actually actively sampling out there?
yes.
Catch them doing that.
Yes, they have been mainly there on the south side of the property along the river, and then on the far northeast corner of the property. As they continue to work through that. With the PLACE program, as I mentioned in last month's meeting with the Reedmore property, that is part of transitioning to Revitalize Richmond, and that will be part of that process. Richmond Neighborhood Restoration will be taking that project on. We are all the partners with Revitalize Richmond are working through the memorandums of understanding and the agreements with the college. That will be approved probably in the next 30 to 60 days. And then after that's complete, then everything will transition with those projects. You'll see in the next month, the Farmers Market Master Plan has been completed and fully funded. The Mechanics Laundry demolition, we are another project waiting on IDEM for their no further action so that we can move forward with the demolition of that building. Prior to the demolition of that, we will have to go to the Historic Preservation Commission to get permission to demolish the building since it is in the Conservation District, in the Depot District. So that is moving forward. With the 1200 block, at this point, the developer is looking at that project and determining when that will move forward. So we are waiting to hear back from the developer as to how they're going to proceed or what they're looking at actually doing on that site. The airport, they are working on completing their project. We talked about the community crossing. Unsafe and blighted structures, this is funding that the code enforcement department uses if they have an emergency demolition or need additional funding for demolition. Gorge activation, that is the project through the Parks Department. That is the match. If you'll recall, we provided the match for their Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. Project Thomas is the transloading facility in the industrial park. And then the park equipment, as you'll see in the next one, has been completely finished, and that drops off in the March project. When we look at the certified technology park, we have the large amount in February is the buyout for the former lessee, and then the new lessor will begin making their payments in June. So that's where we transitioned from. But the amount that we anticipate, that is the accurate amount for the new lessee that we will receive through the rest of 2024. The Wi-Fi upgrades at Elstro, we are continuing to, the Parks Department is continuing to work with RP&L and coordinate that work with their project, which has not quite moved forward yet. The IT department is finalizing the contracts for the remainder of the funding for the electronic device technology. So with the Certified Tech Park, we have $1,053,440.11 available for new projects. With the Johns Manville, They have made one bond payment for this year, and then the second bond payment is reflected there. Again, the Community Crossings project, part of that was funded from this fund, and that will be de-obligated as well. And you will see, not in the March financials, but in the April, when we get to April, the sidewalk project has been complete. So you will see that has been fully funded. So as of the end of the February, we had $1,100,122.58 available for new projects.
What about the Dream Court? Is that?
That has been completed, but it has not been paid. There is a portion in the center court that has not been done to the standards of the park department. So they have, while the majority of it's 99.9% complete, there's some correction that needs to be done. And so they're holding that payment until that's complete.
Is this fund one that we could use for public safety?
The Johns Manville, we could, that's, as you know, one of our topics today. Yes, we would have to determine the time allocated within this district.
Right. Yep.
Yes. Heartland is our standalone TIF for Heartland, where they purchase the bonds and are making those, so whatever they pay in revenue then becomes their payment amount. So the main amount that we have in there, the $15,471.19, we try to keep about $25,000 in there for service, for professional services. The Midwest Industrial Park, this is the new bond for the industrial park. You'll notice the payments from this, actually, there is no payment from the land in the industrial park for this. This bond is paid out of allocation area 1. Baker Tilly has been working with Tracy McGinnis, the controller, to create a new process. In the past, bond payments have been reconciled annually, and they are working on a new process that will allow these transfers from our allocation area 1 to coincide with the payment. So you'll see that transition on the sheet as we move forward. That should start in June.
In June.
Yes, so when you look at your allocation area number 1, your page 1, when you're down in the bond obligations appropriations, that TIF revenue bond of 2022, Midwest Industrial Park 3, that $349,146.60, that's the money that will transfer over to this sheet to cover those payments.
Anything else on the February financials?
No, I think March, as we look at that, when
Need
we,
a separate approval on the February financials?
Yes.
Okay.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the financials of February 2024. Would you call the vote, please?
Mike Bloom,
Aye.
Jenny Lahman,
Aye.
Kathy Lucid,
Aye.
Gary Turner,
Aye.
all are in favor.
Motion carries. Okay, March financials.
So with March, as I noted, the farmers market plan is finished, so that will show as closed. With the community crossings, this is from 2022 round 2. So we have $28,498.50 that we will need to de-obligate from that fund, since that has been closed out. After that de-obligation, the new amount available for new projects is $3,187,383.74. And I will note that when you look at the available, as a reminder, the amount available for new projects, that includes the anticipated revenue that we have not yet received for this year. So just as a reminder, when we finish this conversation and start talking about the pass-through letters and whether we have any funding to pass through, just as a reminder, That total anticipates what we're already expected to receive in 2024.
Shall we entertain the motion on the deobligation before you proceed?
That would be appreciated, yes, thank you.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to deobligate $28,498.50 from Project 8-2022 for community crossing. Would you call the vote, please?
Michael Bloom,
Aye.
Jenny Lauman,
Aye.
Kathy Lucid,
Aye.
Gary Turner.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
For the certified technology park, there is no change from the previous year. We just have, or the previous month, I'm sorry, just have a different amount of interest, leaving us with $1,056,087.36 for future projects. With the Johns Manville Fund, this one we also have a deobligation. When we look at Resolution 7, 2022 for Community Crossings Matching Grant, we have $20,590.83.
Do I hear a motion to deobligate those funds?
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to deobligate $20,590.83 from Resolution 7, 2022 of Community Crossings from the John Mansville Fund. Would you call the vote, please?
Mike Bloom,
Aye.
Jenny Lauman,
Aye.
Kathy Lucid,
Aye.
Gary Turner.
Aye.
All are in favor.
Amount is deobligated.
Thank you. For Heartland, we have no change from the previous month, and the same with the Midwest Industrial Park Fund. We have no change from the previous month.
And we need, if there is no further questions or comments on the financials, we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the financials of March 31st, 2024. Would you call the vote, please?
Mike Bloom,
Aye.
Jenny Lauman,
Aye.
Kathy Lucid,
Aye.
Gary Turner.
Aye.
Financials are approved.
And then, if we could talk about,
I was going to say, before we move on, while we're in the financials
Yes.
section, we have to make our annual statement of pass-through that requires my signature to all the surrounding entities. Would you like to provide further details on that, Beth?
Sure. So annually, when we look at our budget and we look at our outlook for funding and for pay-as-you-go projects that we look at the funding we have available to see if there's anything that can be returned back to the county and then passed through to the overlapping tax districts. At this point in conversation with Baker Tilly and looking at our current projects and our future projects and other projects that have not been discussed with the board yet, it is their recommendation that we do not pass through anything through at this point. As a reminder, we have the $3 million. We have $3,187,383.74 available for new projects. And some of the projects that haven't come before us yet that will be coming would be assistance with public safety, which is part of why we are doing Resolution 1 today, to allow the commission to use funds to assist with public safety, as well as there may be some grant matches that are needed for some other projects that will be coming through that could potentially be requests that would be coming before this board.
So in the form of a motion, would we need a motion to not pass through the $3,187,384?
It would just be a motion not to pass any funding through.
Okay. So the motion would be to not pass any money through to the surrounding tax entities.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. Would you call the vote, please?
Mike Bloom,
Aye.
Jenny Lauman,
Aye.
Kathy Lucid,
Aye.
Gary Turner
Aye.
are in favor.
Motion carries, and I will sign all of the letters at the end of this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They are due just for notice, they are due by June 15th.
And we have no old business at this point. We do have new business. We have Resolution 1-2024. Here we are, May, and our first resolution of the year. Just before we start on this resolution, I just want to read for public record the information that you sent in your email, Beth, in regards to what actually is happening here. Resolution number 1-2024 is an amending declaratory resolution, and it begins the process of amending our development plan to allow the use of TIF funding for public safety expenditures. This does not provide funding at this time. A resolution, funding request, and supporting documentation will be submitted after this works through the approval process. And after adoption by the Redevelopment Commission, it will go to the Plan Commission and Common Council for approval. And after both of those bodies approve, we'll publish a notice of public hearing and hold a public hearing at the Redevelopment Commission meeting. After the public hearing, the Redevelopment Commission will consider an amending confirmatory resolution that, if approved, it will be recorded with the county recorder, delivered to the county auditor, and submitted to the Department of Local Government Finance via Gateway, the state's online transparency portal. So with all of that said, Beth, would you please provide further background
Sure,
on
you
this
have
resolution?
you have covered this. In the legislature last year, there was a lot of discussion about utilizing redevelopment commission funds to assist with public safety expenditures. Many communities are facing a lot of needs with capital, with personnel, as they look at public safety, which would include police, fire, EMS. And so the legislature passed a law that went into effect July 1 of 2023, allowing redevelopment commissions the option to amend their development plans and allow public safety expenditures as an eligible expense. So when you have Resolution 1 in front of you, Exhibit A, that is our project list that we have. So these are all of the types of things that are eligible to be funded by the Redevelopment Commission based on what we have put together. Our first list was created in 2007. It's been amended many times throughout the process. So now you'll see that number 10 has been added, and that is public safety, funding to assist with police and law enforcement system to preserve public space, peace and order, and a firefighting and fire prevention system. So should you decide to approve Resolution 1-2024, it will begin that process that President Lucid indicated, and then would go to the Plan Commission to adopt an amending declaratory resolution, and then be referred to Common Council for a vote, and then back to the Redevelopment Commission for a public hearing.
To vote on this 4 times.
Yes, you do. Carry a lot of weight there, Gary.
Hope you're supportive.
Question I had, and I know that I stated earlier, there is no specific funding requested in this resolution, but is there a way in which the funding will eventually be calculated for this?
Yes, so when we looked at this last year during the process, we worked with the Richmond Police Department to look at the calls and the officers assigned to the TIF allocation area specifically. So we can look at their time spent and the actual costs of their time within the TIF area and calculate a dollar amount for that. So we can do that for our allocation area 1, which is our large area, which is downtown and in the industrial park, and then we can also do that for Johns Manville as well, for the utilization of funds from the Johns Manville.
Another way to do it would be just by the square foot, just calculate, and you measure the areas. and
Sure.
So
Simple
we're going to put a
spreadsheet.
cap on the amount that we would use for
So we would-
public safety.
We would, yeah, that will be at the pleasure of the commission, but the request will most likely be, we will calculate that based on 2023 actual, or as as Gary suggested,
name?
just on the, sorry,
Yeah.
just on the square footage amount, we can actually calculate it that way, and then it's not looking at actual. So the first year, we could calculate the first year based on square footage and then compare that to what the actual was, and then the commission can then determine whether they want to continue with the square footage calculation or whether they prefer to do something else.
Would this be an amount that we earmark and set aside like we do for the school system, or would it be on request from the various departments when they need that funding?
It would actually be built into the city's budget. So it would be, should the commission determine that they will fund part of that, then it will be included as revenue in the city's budget.
So it'll be a line item.
Yes.
So I have a question. Is this more if you are assigned to that district, all of your wages for said day would be pulled from TIF instead of the general budget? Or is it going to be more based on calls and actual events that happen within the TIF that police get dispatched to?
So that is the determination of the board. We can calculate it both ways. And this will just be, I am thinking that this will be a very small part of their overall budget. I mean, it will not, absolutely, it will not supplant. They will use their general fund allocation as well as we go through the budget process. So we're not supplanting other funding. I lost the word. We're supplementing. Sorry.
Yeah, and my other concern, this is the space I live in, just in my day job, is payroll, HRIS, right? I'm the one who builds all these things out. It's always very difficult to break out wages, you're costing, you're updating the GL. I'm sure the accounting people are like, yes. So, you said like, we'll probably get to that point of what it looks like. You think they were kind of doing an analysis for last year. But I would think it would be very important to sort of do actuals, at least starting off, so you get a true sense and then can benchmark against, especially if, like you said, looking at square footage, you'd want to have a point of truly looking at the time spent from one year, so you know how that varies year to year. It may sound easier than to go to an estimate, but I just, that's just me worrying about
Yeah, they're assigned.
issues that could come up from that of,
Sure. And they are assigned
Sure.
specific districts, so we can, when we ran the analysis originally, they did it based on those that were assigned and the amount of time that they were assigned, each of the officers was assigned. And that's part of the reason that this will be a lump sum that will go into the budget as a revenue versus trying to tie it directly to.
okay. Do you foresee like a true up at the end of the year? Like, here's a budget line we're going to sort of identify, but then still always do a year-end audit against it? I don't know how that works, but.
I think that is a very good question.
Yeah, and I can talk to our controller about that. I think when they were looking at what other communities were doing, they were simply doing, some just did a specific amount. Some did, we'll pay for all overtime and all capital. So it really just depends on the pleasure. I mean, if you look at the overtime numbers, I don't know what they are for this year. I know in the past, they have gotten close to the $1 million mark in overtime, so.
We're not looking for additional coverage in the districts. We're just looking to supplement the city's cost of patrolling
Correct. Yes.
the TIF areas.
Yes. Yes, the legislation, it's been something that they've tried to pass multiple years, and it did pass last year, was because of the high cost for public safety and the capital that they need. They needed additional funding over and above what the general fund was able to provide with the tax caps that are in place and the levy system that we had. There just isn't necessarily, the growth quotient is capped every year. So the increase there's a cap on what that can be. So that hinders the ability to purchase new capital, to do pay increases and different things. So they were trying to find another tool that could help communities ensure that their public safety offerings are robust and appropriate for the community.
What's the northern boundary of our downtown TIF?
I would have to look at the map.
In other words, how much of the north end do we cover with the TIF?
I think quite a bit.
Obviously, that's one of our most intensely patrolled.
What is it, J Street, maybe,
Is
where
it
it's
J?
off?
Okay, well, that would be all of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it jogs along J
Okay.
and stops, and then it picks up again up in the industrial
I don't
park.
have my map in front of me.
Yeah, I don't have my map in front of me either, but yeah, we will actually, we'll have it calculated all of those different ways, and then the commission can look at all of those different options and then make a determination as to how you would like to proceed.
I think following up, excuse me,
Please, go ahead.
on what Kim said, and I agree with what she said, I think trust but verify. And I think we would have, it would be nice to have a method to say, like, in a couple of years, there's been more patrols, or there's been less patrols in this TIF area, and consider that. But I think you're right in asking the question. I mean, and it's easy to ask, but it sounds like it'd be really hard to figure out, because unless there's a little ding, there's some sort of identifier in their car or their person as they're driving through the area that it starts tracking it.
Yeah, I mean, it
don't
would
know.
be,
And I'm all for it. I think we should help. I don't have a problem with
Yeah.
that, but I just want to make sure that we're spending our money well and not getting.
yeah, because we can do a variety of different things. We can track the actual calls that are in the district. We can track the personnel that are assigned to the district and the number of people that are assigned. That way, we can do it, based on the number of calls that come through dispatch. We can do it by square footage. So we have a lot of options in the way that we can calculate what that
We need
is.
to be careful, though, that the tracking of this whole thing doesn't cost
Yeah.
Yeah.
as much as we're giving them, or
Well,
taking a significant portion of the
Right,
money
right.
that we're giving.
All of our data that comes in, we geo-track that, so we can easily pull up the calls by location. We can easily take the man hours. We know how much each person costs based on their salary and all of their fringe benefits. So we can say, well, so-and-so spent 2,000 hours in the district, and we can calculate what 2,000 of their hours costs.
That's good that that's right at your fingertips.
So is it wages and including fringe benefits that would, okay. And I'm sure that we have this, what actually overlaps now? Because I know the police, it's broken up. I don't even want to pretend to know. I know northwest, east, south, for the most part, but how much of their patrol, overlaps the TIF districts? I think that would be interesting to know.
Yeah, and they have a map that we can share with you that shows each of their patrol areas and the maps. There's one that's mainly our downtown area and a bit to the east and the north. I can't remember exactly how many different patrol areas they have, but yes, we'll provide all of that through the process.
Question I had, Beth, assuming this passes through all of the entities that we're talking about and it comes back to us for public hearing, sounds like we have some homework to do to understand how we're going to calculate that amount. Do we need to have that information available at the time of public hearing?
Yes.
And in front of council, for sure.
Yeah, so we will,
Well, if it
the public
needs to be
hearing.
in front of council for this resolution,
Well, I was
we
gonna-
need to talk about that amount prior to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
We probably ought to take the initial steps for literally calculating what we're talking about here
before
before
it
we advance
proceeds.
it. Yeah.
yeah, so we have the calculations for 2022. We haven't done a recalculation for 2023 yet. But at this point, it would be scheduled to go to Common Council on June 3rd. based on the process, since there's not a public hearing through their process. What they're approving is they're approving the development plan. They're approving your ability to spend the money on public safety.
It'll just be a resolution.
It'll just be a resolution. Yes. So they're
No
not
dollars
approving
talked about.
what you're going to spend or how you're going to spend it.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
There
why I
will
think
be,
that that's definitely going to come up in public hearing.
yes, we will definitely have all of that. The public hearing, if we change our meeting notices, right now, the public hearing is scheduled for July. So we have plenty of time to calculate that, but if we move if we do change our meetings from the second Tuesday to a later meeting, then that may change the,
I think we need to talk
schedule.
about that calculation in the meeting before we have the public hearing. So we may need to move
we can talk
public
about that
hearing
in our-
another period out.
in our, yeah. Because as the way the schedule is now, it would go to Plan Commission for May 22nd, which they would be saying that this does,
It's okay
fall
to
within
add,
yes.
To the plan.
That it's okay to add to the plan. And then the Common Council resolution said, they are affirming and approving Plan Commission's order. So that is what their role is, to affirm Plan Commission's order. And then the notice of public hearing would be published at least 10 days prior to the public hearing, and then we would hold the public hearing.
well, I definitely think we need to have a meeting to discuss the amount before we go to public hearing.
And I think we need to have had that meeting before you come to council.
Okay.
That's going to,
Well, I know, there's a
Yeah,
real
it's-
wrinkle in it, but
Yeah,
I
it's
know for sure our council's not going to,
We can absolutely do that. We'll
what about
update the
Plan
timetable.
Commission?
Plan Commission, I'm not worried about it.
So just so we're clear, since we're talking about a lot of options here.
Yeah,
Let's
so-
clear it up.
So,
It'll go to Plan Commission next week. If it passes Plan Commission, it will be on our agenda in the following meeting to talk about the amount. And then, once the amount is determined, it'll carry into council.
Council.
And then when council reviews it, and if they approve it, we'll come back then for public hearing.
And that public hearing would be July 9th.
Well,
it won't be now that
Already
we're
are.
changing the order, because it will probably be the July 1st meeting that it would be at council.
because it would be the June meeting that we would
Yes.
discuss the amount.
Yes,
Okay. Okay, you got all those notes, Beth?
I have it.
So I
Okay.
guess we don't take action at all on it today, other than to table it for our.
No, we can vote on the fact that it's going to be
Amending
added to the plan.
Yes.
Yes, we are just amending the plan we are starting the process to amend the plan. The funding request will come later, but based on the process that this has to go through with council, we're going to go ahead and do the funding amount and the calculation determination by this commission prior to it going to council. So when we present this to council, we will say, Redevelopment Commission has voted, they considered multiple ways to calculate this, this was their choice, this is the dollar amount, and your approval of amending the plan allows them to move forward with funding that should they choose.
And public hearing.
Yes.
You good with that, Gary?
Yes.
Okay.
And
So I
quickly,
think-
before we vote, you said you calculated what the amount would be based on 22 numbers. What was that number?
It was just under $500,000.
Okay.
Okay. So we are voting on resolution number 1, 2024, a resolution of the Richmond Redevelopment Commission amending the declaratory resolutions of the Richmond Redevelopment Commission.
I move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would you call the vote, please?
Mike Bloom,
Aye.
Jenny Lauman,
Aye.
Kathy Lucid,
Aye.
Gary Turner,
Aye.
all are in favor.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Second item of business on our agenda today is Resolution Number 2, 2024, a resolution authorizing the appropriation and expenditure of funds from Main Street Richmond, MSR. And I believe we have Dakota Collins here to talk to that resolution.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good
Hello,
afternoon.
Dakota.
Again, I'm Dakota Collins, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today on behalf of Main Street Richmond. As you read in our proposal, Main Street Richmond has struggled with direction and purpose in the last several years, showcasing significant mission drift. But as conversations in our community coalesce around downtown development and revitalization, our community needs an organization that serves as a leader and a coordinator of all of those efforts and a strong and reliable advocate for downtown. That organization should be, and has been in the past, Main Street Richmond, as Main Street organizations across the country do for their communities. Unfortunately, we're at a point with our organization where we don't know exactly what that looks like or how to accomplish it. Therefore, we're seeking funding to engage local consultants and others to complete a strategic plan for the organization and an implementation plan to put that vision into actionable steps. And so while these funds directly support the Main Street Richmond organization, the creation of a comprehensive plan for the organization will have much more farther-reaching effects throughout the community. By investing in Main Street Richmond's transformation into a strategic, forward-thinking, and active organization, you'll be investing really in the heart of our community, fostering a more vibrant and prosperous center city area that will attract businesses, stimulate economic growth, and create job opportunities across various sectors, with the eventual goal of fostering a sense of pride and belonging that extends far beyond the streets of our downtown. So our strategic planning initiative is more than just a project. It's our organization's commitment to unlocking the full potential of downtown, the Depot District, and the entire community. There's a lot more information in the proposal directly, but I'd be happy to take any questions that you have now.
Questions?
Is the 25,000 the entire budget for this? Or are there other sources that you're tapping?
So for the strategic planning process specifically, that is the entire budget. We are pursuing other funding opportunities to continue our operations to support the strategic planning process, but the budget for strategic planning and the implementation plan specifically is 25.
I can't imagine that other Main Street organizations around the country haven't stumbled as well in the past. Does the state or national Main Street organizations, can they offer you assistance of, this was what happened in Community X, and this is what they did to get themselves back on the track? I mean, or have you already tapped them, or is that part of the plan?
Yes, so both Main Street America and Indiana Main Street have tools available, and as one of their affiliate organizations, we have access to that. I think it was 2 years ago, they came in and did what they called a transformation strategy. It was very helpful. I think what it was missing is some specificity to our community, building out our board a little bit, and then creating that implementation plan. So we have two plans throughout this. One is to first take that transformation strategy, as they call it, and utilize that to go to the stakeholders throughout downtown and the Depot District and talk to them and do a stakeholder analysis about, within the context of this transformation strategy, what makes the most sense from your perspective as a business owner or a property owner or a resident for an organization like Main Street Richmond to do? What works best for you? And then we actually have a site visit with Indiana Main Street and Main Street America on May 30th, I believe, so it's right around the corner. So in addition to hiring local consultants to really focus in on visioning and board development and do that strategic planning, We're hoping to be able to use these funds to bring in Main Street America and potentially Indiana Main Street again to sort of review the process. So to answer your question, yes, there are a lot of resources out there, and we are planning on utilizing them.
Do you have to pay for these, or is that part of your membership, or how do they?
We're still figuring that piece out. I would imagine if we're asking them to come in outside of the accreditation visit that we're going to see in a couple weeks, we'll at least have to pay for travel,
see.
and that would come out of these funds as well.
Coda, you know I have to ask the difficult question. The Redevelopment Commission through the years has put a large amount of money into the Innovation Center, Center City, Main Street Richmond, all the various iterations of that organization. And here we are again.
Yeah.
So what makes this different?
I think what makes this different is the timing in our community, first and foremost. I think there is a stronger dedication to the revitalization of the downtown and Depot District areas than there's ever been before. We've seen it through the new administration, through Revitalize Richmond, through a number of plans, through Forward Wayne County. There is an extreme focus on downtown. And Main Street needs to be that organization, not only for itself, but for the community, to help coalesce all those initiatives and provide that direction. I don't know what happens with our community if there isn't that organization or body to take that up. I will say now the situation with Main Street Richmond has also changed drastically than it has from the past. I wasn't involved as a board member in some of those initiatives. But I know from this perspective, or from the perspective of the board right now, this moment is make it or break it for Main Street Richmond. This is our last chance to be a vital organization that this community needs to serve the community. And again, I can't speak for past boards and what they've done, but I think the addition of the implementation plan after a strategic plan will help us a lot, not just have a plan and put it on the shelf, but turn it into actionable steps to take over the coming months and years to really turn that plan into action.
Is there an actual director right now?
There is not currently a director. It's led by the executive committee. We hope to, after the strategic plan is in place, hire a new director.
My past, I've been involved with the Main Street organization for, I think I could almost say decades. Beth and I have been involved, and I was even before that, back when it was the I forgot what we called it. Anyway.
Inner City, yeah.
Yeah,
One of those other iterations.
One of the
before
other
that,
Yes.
Yeah, with Taft, Bill Taft, yeah. Anyhow, my point is, the director has an enormous impact. You know, when we had Renee and Jason, those are two that popped to mind that were really out there and involved, and just people in the state knew them and so forth. So I think, yes, you need a good board and a decent plan, but I don't think if you don't have that director, volunteers, they have good intentions, but they're volunteers and it's an unpaid position, and so they're not going to take it as seriously, perhaps.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I think a director, a good director, I think is going to be key to executing what it is you guys have in mind.
I agree wholeheartedly. As one of those executive committee members trying to keep this together, it is very challenging doing it.
And your honorarium probably isn't covering
It's
much
not
of your-
great, no. So we do technically have two different paths that we're considering. The much more realistic option is to complete the strategic planning and utilize that information to define the job of the executive director in a much more detailed way, and then hire them later in the year after we have a chance to do some additional fundraising as well. There is another option that exists in some conversations of finding that funding to hire a really great visionary executive director and have them be a part of the process. That would probably be a situation in which it would be a multi-year contract rather than a permanent position. But we're exploring different options. But I think I can speak for the board when I say we agree we need a director. Yeah.
When you complete this strategic plan, can you come back to the commission and share that with us?
We would be happy to.
I just want to say, I had owned a building downtown So I kind of fell into this, we couldn't get anything done. And not necessarily red tape. I know you probably know this about, it's sort of like, where do you go? Who do you talk to? What steps? I don't know the backstory on a lot of it. Just seemed like there was always this back and forth. So I'm excited, hopefully, because I don't want to say in a negative tone, it seems like it's the last chance, but it's like, let's, kind of create that structure for current business owners, people that are interested, just overall for the city, I think is, a good step, which I'm going to assume the strategic plan will probably help you all flush out and figure out so that people do know who to go to, what questions to ask, and then you can really see where red tape might be and does it need to be there type of, because I think we have a unique, not a completely unique downtown area to Indiana since it's so old and historic, but it does, pose challenges. So, yes.
I think that's really important for our board, and we recognize that while the board and the consultants are the ones completing the strategic plan and the implementation plan, it needs to be community-driven. And that's why we want to talk to those stakeholders downtown in the Depot District and other service areas to figure out for them, what's the best way that we can serve?
Absolutely.
And be the spokesperson for that area.
Exactly.
How long do you anticipate the strategic plan?
We're probably talking several months. I think the goal is by the end of August to have everything, including the implementation plan, completed. The site visit from Indiana Main Street and Main Street America may delay that a little bit, but we plan to get started with the stakeholder interviews as soon as we secure funding.
Any other questions?
Well, I move for approval of Resolution 2, 2024.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve Resolution 2, 2024 for $25,000. Would you call the vote, please?
Mike Bloom,
Aye.
Jenny Lauman,
Aye.
Kathy Lucid,
Aye.
Gary Turner,
Aye.
all are in favor.
Motion carries.
Thank you all very much.
And good luck.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, the third item on our agenda today is Resolution Number 3, 2024, a resolution authorizing the appropriation and expenditure of funds, infrastructure at the Richmond Municipal Airport for snow removal equipment storage facility. And I believe you are speaking for.
I am. They had something come up, and Rodney was not able to leave the airport to be with us today, so I am going to present on his behalf. So if you'll recall, the Redevelopment Commission assisted the airport with getting some new snow removal equipment with providing match funds for a federal grant that they were able to receive. That grant required that equipment be stored in a specific facility. And so now there are 2 grant opportunities that the airport is pursuing in order to fund that storage facility. So the total amount that you have here, $22,000, is a little over the actual match amount that you see in the applications that are provided. That is to allow for if there are any contingencies or any change orders that might come up during that process. This will be up to a 2,000 square foot facility there at the airport.
So I understand they're building this from scratch.
Correct.
And we do have additional financing sources, correct?
Correct. And the applications had the deadline to submit the applications was prior to the ability for Rodney to do an application to the Redevelopment Commission. So the airport board has funded this $22,000 out of their fund. So they are prepared to cover this match so the commission not be in favor of supporting this. But they wanted to be sure that they could submit the application. With the application, they had to have a letter indicating that they had secured the match. So they could not get that from this body, so their board indicated that they would provide that $22,000 for the match for these two applications. But then Rodney is here asking, should the commission be so inclined to fund that? They have limited funds for the airport fund, and they would like to retain that $22,000 in their fund, should the commission be willing to fund that match.
Just for the record, we have precedent of supporting airport projects.
Correct.
Questions?
Did they know that they needed the buildings originally with the equipment?
Yes, but the funding round to build the building didn't come until after.
Okay.
Yes. So there are two different grant funding streams that they're able to pursue, but yes.
Good question. Other questions? Not, do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Hear a motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Would you call the vote, please?
Mike Bloom,
Aye.
Jenny Lauman,
Aye.
Kathy Lucid,
Aye.
Gary Turner,
Aye.
all are in favor.
Resolution 3, 2024 for $22,000 passes. Okay, that concludes the resolutions that we have on the agenda for today. We have a little bit of new business to pursue that's not on the agenda, but we were talking about the financials, and we noticed that the financial statements that we received for this meeting were for February and March, and we would like to have more current financials when we come to this meeting so that we're making decisions based upon the current financial situation. And it sounds like in order to do that, we should be considering moving the timing of this meeting from the second Tuesday of the month to the third Tuesday of the month.
Correct. The finance department reconciles the previous month's financials, and that takes typically the first 2 weeks of the month in order to get those reconciliations completed. So those reconciliations, we wait for those to be completed then before we look at our financials to be sure that it does reconcile and matches with everything. So if we were to move to the third week of the month, then we would be guaranteed that that process would be complete. Like April was finished on Friday of last week. So I do have the April financials, and they're ready, but didn't share them.
Right,
Since
and we would like time in order to review those. Yeah, I know we talked about timing of these meetings at our last meeting and agreed to keep it as it is. But I think with this new information that we have on when financials are available, that does raise the question again, whether or not we would like to move that in order to have current financials. What are the thoughts of the commissioners?
I think we should move.
I'm in favor of moving it, but if it's at noon on the third Tuesday, I'm on the Civic Hall Board president, so
Okay.
I won't be able to attend unless it would be earlier in the day or later.
Okay,
In that noon
that's
time frame.
Certainly something to consider. Mike?
I have no
thoughts?
problem. I'm retired.
Yeah.
No,
And
I don't see an issue.
do
was
we
just
want to
looking.
consider moving it to a 1 o'clock rather than a noon timeframe?
I could probably do 1:30. That would probably, our meetings last about an hour 15.
Okay.
And I don't think they can move that because some other board members have board meetings at 10 or 11 that same day.
Okay, and we need to check with Allison also before we make a final determination, but I think we're tentatively looking at going to the third Tuesday of each month at 1:30.
Okay, I will
Check with Allison and see whether or
Yes.
not she has a conflict at that time, and if so, we'll look at the calendars again.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. The other item that's in our new business, we would like to get an update on what's happening with some of the buildings downtown. And, I mean, we see a lot of construction. We get a lot of questions from people as to what's happening. You know, what's the stage of this building and who owns that and what are we doing? And I think that we need an update as a commission so that we can responsibly answer those inquiries.
Sure. So there are multiple projects that are a part of Revitalize Richmond and also not part of Revitalize Richmond. With the Read More building specifically, that will be part of Revitalize Richmond, and Richmond Neighborhood Restoration will be moving that forward. As I mentioned during the financials, that will be probably the next 30 to 60 days. They are going through the legal process with all of the memorandums of understanding and the process for that. So that is working through the project. Project Phoenix, there is a developer that has an option on 2 of the downtown buildings and is looking at acquiring an option on a 3rd building, looking to do an apartment project. At this point, we don't have anything specific there
When you say options on those buildings, what do you mean?
to acquire them. So they're doing they have a written option on the building. So they've put down earnest money, they're going through their due diligence, they've agreed upon a price, and so they're working through the process to acquire those buildings.
It's Nolenberg's and the Hiddle building that we're talking about here. What's the third one?
The BMO Harris,
Who?
the former BMO Harris building.
Okay.
So
Gary, did you say the Hiddle building? Mm-hmm. Okay.
the developer told me I couldn't say.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. You said it. I didn't. So I am good. I have not violated anything I have signed.
Me either.
Didn't sign anything.
So, and then we have a developer that is looking at the former Chase building. They were the high bid at an auction, and they are going through their due diligence period on that building, so that could potentially move forward. They are also looking at the former Second National Bank, U.S. Bank building as well. The Elder Beerman building, the Phase 1 has been completed. Phase 2 is happening next week. And the demolition package is being prepared for that project. And we should see demolition later in the fall. So we will, the skywalk will be coming down when the building comes down as well. And it will not be going back up.
When will the road be open?
Never. That's the way it felt all these years.
Not in the next 3 weeks.
Didn't-
We get 3-week look-ahead schedules. So the goal is that it will be completed by the end of August on Main Street. And then they will start, only 2 blocks can be closed at one time with this contract. So right now, the 700 and 800 block are closed. When the 700 block is finished, the 800 block, or the 900 block will close. More than likely, the 900 block, they will all 3 more than likely be closed at the same time because Indiana American Water is working ahead. So while only 2 blocks can be closed for Loop Phase 2, Indiana American Water can close the 3rd block, the 900 block, to do the work that they need. So there will be a small overlap where all 3 blocks will be closed, but they will not start doing Loop Phase 2 work in the 900 block until the 700 block is open. And then they will be moving to the Depot District.
What, if anything, can we do to help support the merchants downtown that are?
We
Closure?
have had some conversations, again, with Main Street and the Depot District, letting them know that if there's anything that we can do, we have some funding set aside, that we can assist them if they want any assistance with marketing or signage. The Depot District has a flower pot thing that they have put in place for beautification. At the time that we met with them most recently, they were not looking for any additional things during that time. And then I think I mentioned it earlier, but we have $1 million available for the property owners, both along Main Street and in the Depot District, for building revitalization through Building Revitalization Grant Program. It is $100,000 maximum. It's a 75-25 split. So if you have a $134,000 project, if you put in $34,000, you can get the $100,000, the full match. And those applications are due July 1st. So
Just said along Main Street. Now, would that include,
it does include you, yes. It goes from A to A from the center line of A Street. And so those were direct mailed to all property owners the second week of April. And then our community development coordinator, Lindsay Darnell, is following up. We've only had 5 inquiries, and we've received no applications for the project to date.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
So, but we've pushed it on social. We did direct mail. We've talked about it at the Depot District Association meetings, making sure everybody's aware of the availability.
So the communication's been out there.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Do we provide any assistance to help business owners maybe fill out the request at all,
Yes.
or-
Beth, the other Beth Fields at the county, she is the help coordinator, and she is assisting people with applications should they need assistance.
Great.
Thank you, Beth.
One other project, the famous park beneath the bridge. Have they actually designed that yet?
No, they have not.
That wasn't approved through us, that was through,
No, we're funding.
did we approve
For
funding?
the design.
Yeah, there's no
Oh, that's
design
right,
yet.
okay.
Yeah.
I do remember that now.
Any other questions? Any other new business? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
So are we Tuesday next month?
You are watching Whitewater Government Television, WGTV, Channel 11, part of the Whitewater Community Television family.